Yes!
MediEvil, the tale of Sir Will Forte.
Hey everyone! Hey everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of The Completionist. And today, guys, I have one little announcement before we start today's episode. I will be at Stan Lee's Kamikaze at the LA Convention Center on October 31st through November 2nd. I do have a panel on the 31st with some other YouTubers as well, like Random Encounters and Black Nerd Comedy and more. And we're doing a panel on, guess what? YouTube and gaming. So if you are in the Los Angeles area, you want to learn about how to get into the gaming sphere and YouTube, and at least say hello to me afterwards and take photos and all that stuff, come on by. It'll be a good time. I know it's on Halloween, but I promise to make it worth it. So come on by and say hello. Or goodbye. And on that note, guys, today we're going to be jumping into a world filled with things about Halloween, witches and pumpkins and wonderful PS1 polygons. Oh, those PS1 polygons were definitely terrifying at times. So when I was a kid, my mom and I went to Chicago for a family event, and there was this huge video game store out there, the biggest I've ever seen. I wish I remembered the name of it. Anyway, in that store, my mom said I could buy one game, and that game was MediEvil.
But Batman, this game doesn't look very scary. Does it have magic? Does it have witches? Does it have... Dear God, why does the main character have no skin? Holy nuts!
Greg, calm down. It's all right. He's just a skeleton.
Oh, dear God, it's horrifying. He doesn't even have a jaw. Can he even talk?
It's, yeah, I have no idea.
This game is rated E for everyone, right?
Actually, T for teens.
All right, everyone who isn't a teen, stop watching. That includes you older people, too. I'm on to you, geezers.
The year is 1286. An evil sorcerer named Zarek is scheming to take over the kingdom of Galamir with all of his undead pals. According to the lore of Galamir, the king sent Galamir's champion Sir Daniel Fortescue up against Zarek and his undead army.
The irony in this is that Sir Daniel Fortescue dies by an arrow in the first battle, but is somehow remembered as a great hero.
Zarek is destroyed and put to rest for 100 years. Exactly 100 years later, he comes back and boy is he pissed. He resurrects every undead in the kingdom to fight for him and steals all the souls of the living. Well, this is where our villain made his mistake, as he also resurrects Sir Daniel. Missing an eye and his jaw, our hero Sir Daniel does not even want revenge, so much as he wants to prove to everyone that he actually was the hero that was chosen to fight. I gotta say, Sir Daniel looks ugly, but in a cute way. Here, we've got a protagonist that, regardless of missing his jaw and eyeball, fights the good fight, even in the afterlife.
Judging by your past reviews, I can't really imagine what you'd have to say about Sir Daniel being a relatable protagonist. Do you have no skin?
He's just as relatable as Mario is trying to save the princess. I'd argue that Sir Daniel may even have a bit more depth, as he's given a second chance to be the real hero he was destined to be, but was robbed of.
He took an arrow to the knee? Whoopsie daisy. Kinda missed the mark on that joke by a couple episodes. That's called fan service. You're welcome, guys.
Let's all take a breather and just bask in all the glory that is the PS1 FMV 3D 15 frames per second cutscenes that are not only in MediEvil, but really defined how PlayStation got a leg up on Nintendo for so many years. Cutscenes always looked better on PlayStation, depending on the game, of course. They take place in between almost every level. The director of the game, Chris Sorrell, was obsessed with The Nightmare Before Christmas, Tim Burton, and Danny Elfman. These three things are very obviously prominent within all aspects of design.
This is MediEvil, there's no skin on this dead night.
Sorrell and his team had never really designed a game in 3D before, let alone an action-adventure hack-and-slash platformer. The original intent was that this game would be a multi-platform title stretching across the Sega Saturn, PC, and PlayStation. However, when Sony saw the game, they loved it so much, they bought Sorrell's studio, and from there, Sony Entertainment of Europe was born, with its first real title being MediEvil. For me, the visuals are definitely hard on the eyes. The polygons are pretty rough around the edges, and it's hard to decipher what's what a lot of the time. This is kind of interesting to see, considering that MediEvil was created towards the end of the PlayStation's life cycle, with games like Final Fantasy VII and Spyro the Dragon being released years before.
Well, Gerard, Spyro the Dragon was released a month before MediEvil.
Well, even at that, Spyro was well designed, whereas MediEvil had some trouble. You can tell a lot of sleepless nights went into polishing the game, and for what it's worth, they tried. As a kid, I was totally engaged in the game, but playing it now for the first time since then, I don't know. I get the feeling it doesn't quite hold up as well. The levels aren't too complicated or too crazy in terms of their design, but there were a few levels that kind of leave you scratching your head going, what do I do next? Or, how do I beat this boss? It didn't happen often, but when it did, I definitely got frustrated.
I'm still trying to figure out which Ryu it is. That's called the opposite of fan service. You're welcome, guys.
Is it a dumb thing that I am bummed that the levels aren't as Halloween themed as I thought? I mean, aside from the obvious opening levels like the graveyard and that pumpkin patch, nothing seems too Halloween-y. I think that at one point we even battle on a pirate ship. I mean, you dress like a pirate on Halloween, right?
I like turtles.
Yeah, I'm right. I don't know. There's something very meatloafy about this game.
I would do anything for love. Oh, I would do anything for skin. Oh, I would do anything for an eye. But I don't have a jaw. No jaw.
One of the bigger problems of the PlayStation era of creating a 3D game was getting a camera to cooperate with you, and this was a big challenge for MediEvil. It doesn't always spin fast enough, or maybe it's too slow, and every now and then the camera will reset itself because it limits itself with the rotation. And with that, the game tries to be a platformer, but it fails miserably. Too many moments of falling between cracks or falling off ledges because of control issues. This is one of the first PS1 games that uses the analog sticks as well, and I highly recommend it because it's pretty stiff with regular controls. But hey, the soundtrack is awesome, that Danny Elfman vibe is definitely there, especially during the later boss fights, and the voice acting is pretty solid too. The humor is funny, and the writing is great. I don't know, maybe I'm just judging the visuals a bit too harshly. I just wanted something spooky.
It's alright, man. This spooky song will cheer you up. I know it will.
Spooky, scary skeletons and shivers down your spine. Shrieking skulls will shock your soul, seal your doom tonight. Spooky, scary skeletons speak with such a screech. You'll shake and shudder in surprise when you hear these zombies shriek.
It's not spooky. How do I describe the genre that MediEvil falls into? I guess it's an action-adventure, hack-and-slash game with limited platforming? Yeah, that sounds about right. Using the D-pad or the analog stick, you can control Sir Daniel to run or walk very slowly. Playing on the PS3, I made the mistake of not utilizing the analog sticks at first. Don't make the same mistake I did, folks.
Don't create a vast audience of people who expect you to complete increasingly more difficult games every week for the last few years? Or a different mistake?
Different one, Greg. Sir Daniel is really vulnerable, and I mean really, really vulnerable. Everything hurts him. In the beginning, this is fine, as you've got 300 HP, and you can collect life bottles that you can fill up to 9. However, falling off due to bad platforming takes a full bottle away, which has me reminding you to take your time. The game's idea of difficulty does not come from variants of enemies, so much as a few new enemies you do see just do a lot more damage than you'd expect. And the boss fights are relatively hard at first. You can access and equip different shields you get on certain levels, but shields are pretty much useless. After sustaining some damage, they're gone until you find them again. And the game is pretty unforgiving in terms of death. I died a lot when I got to boss fights at the end of a level, and it would take another 20 to 30 minutes spent playing through over again. I guess I can't complain too much. Aside from that, the game's really enjoyable.
What's this? What's this? I really like this game. What's this? I feel I must proclaim. What's this? I can't believe my eyes. I must be streaming. Look at Gerard. There is a bear. What's this?
There's 21 levels total, with one level being a secret dungeon inside of another level. Each level has locked sections that you'll need particular runestones in order to move forward. For each level, excluding the final level of the game, you'll need to collect a chalice. Chalices can only be collected when you've killed enough enemies to get 100%. These chalices, while not a requirement to beat the game, grant you access to a lot of secret weapons, upgrades, and just overall cash and life replenishment. There are 20 chalices total, and at the end of every level, you'll be teleported back to the Hall of Heroes, where former heroes from different wars await to give you those items. I gotta hand it to the developers for the vast array of drastically different weapons to get access to. The playstyle variance is nice for people who don't necessarily want to go toe-to-toe with ghouls. From your regular sword, to an enchanted sword, to a magical sword, to a club, a sledgehammer, a throwing axe, a variety of different throwing and projectile items like knives and spears, crossbows, bow and arrows, and chicken legs.
You can throw a cooked chicken leg as a weapon? Well, that's just like my favorite character, Mr. Game & Watch.
Whatever weapon you choose, you'll probably end up sticking to your favorites. Mine were the sledgehammer, the throwing axe, and the sword. I only used projectiles when I was lazy. There were many moments where I would rather just pull out a crossbow or regular bow and shoot something from afar in order to preserve my life a bit. There are a few collectible items that you can unlock, but they're not required by any means. We'll talk more about that in the completion bonus. Overall, the game was only 7 to 10 hours for me. So after you've collected all the items from the Hall of Heroes, collected 20 chalices, and battled your way to Zarok's lair, well, it's time to fight Zarok. When you enter the level, be sure to grab the item from the chest called Good Lightning.
Why, it could be good lightning!
You'll need it for the first round of this boss fight. Zarok summons several undead soldiers to kill you. Depending on how many chalices you've got, you'll spawn your own undead army to attack his. Using the Good Lightning,
Sandy, come on!
you'll need to use your HP as a way to heal your undead army. This can be pretty tricky, but with enough patience, you'll get it down. Next up is this horse-type character boss thing, which is pretty easy to kill. Just smack him around when he starts to charge at you. No biggie. And finally, our battle with Zarok is underway. This fight reminds me of the dragon fight from the Disney cartoon The Sword and the Stone. Anyways, this fight can be deceptively hard, but it's actually very easy. Just hang out in front of him, and eventually he'll stand on his back legs. Only then can you lay the smackdown on him.
Curse you, Sir Knight. I am finally defeated.
The completion bonus is quite easy to get. As long as you've been paying attention and killing all of the enemies on every level and collecting the chalices, you'll unlock the good ending. The ending usually involves Sir Daniel going back to sleep, but if you've got all the chalices, you'll be treated to a special scene where Sir Daniel parties with all of the iconic heroes who gave him all the power-ups. In the remake for the PSP, MediEvil Resurrection, they make this the normal ending with no completion ending. There are a few hidden collectibles you can get. Getting the Witch's Talisman will enable a few side quests, one of which leads to a chalice, with the other leading to collecting something called a Dragon Gem. Collecting 2 Dragon Gems and placing them in the Dragon Face plate in the Crystal Caves level will grant you a mini-boss. Upon its defeat, you will get the Dragon Armor, which lets you breathe fire, as well as grant fire immunity.
Well, that's one thing Smash doesn't have, because there's lots of Fire Emblem characters now.
Now there is one last thing I didn't talk about, and that's cheat codes. This game has cheat codes and they're incredibly unfair. I mean, in my eyes, cheat codes should make the game more fun. I love games where you get a special move, or maybe an unlimited amount of a special move, even things like Big Head Mode. With the cheat codes in this game, you can just get the chalice in that level, and with the hit of a button, you can beat the entire level. I don't know. In my eyes, it seems kind of pointless.
You know, that reminds me of the old There Is No Cow level cheat from StarCraft and Warcraft. Moo, 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 moo.
MediEvil has many ups and downs. The soundtrack and the story of the game are very fun, sprinkled with humor and good voice acting. The graphics haven't aged too well, with camera and platforming issues, and the game's difficulty doesn't feel progressive so much as it feels forced and unfair, and you can cheat your way from start to finish if you'd like, but then what's the point of even playing the game?
Getting to watch sweet cutscenes like this!
This game is an easy 10 hours at most, depending on your own ability. I don't know. Honestly, Greg, I was hoping that my little kid nostalgia goggles would kick in and take over for me. I guess not this time.
Well, Gerard, there's only so many things you can do for an old love.
I would do anything for love. Oh, I would do anything for skin. I would do anything for an eye. But I don't have a jaw still, no jaw still, no jaw at all.
MediEvil, aside from everything I just said, was genuinely received well. There was a sequel to the game, and there's even a remake on the PlayStation Portable, which I don't own, so I don't really have a gauge of what they did or did not fix. Overall, the game has got some charm, but in my eyes, it really hasn't aged that well. And it doesn't quite have that Halloween, spooky, scary vibe that it seemed to ooze out early on. I love you, Cat Icarus, you're a great guy and we're good friends, but this game just was not for me. With that in mind, guys, this game gets my completionist rating of Play It.
Play it! And after you play it, be sure to subscribe. Be sure to check out both of these videos here in case you missed them. And with another Friday, it means we've got another Spotify playlist for you over at ThatOneVideoGamer. I couldn't even say. Now back to you, Gerard. ThatOneVideoGamer.com.
That's all the time we have for today, guys. So as always, leave your thoughts somewhere on the internet. You got your Facebook, your Twitter, your Tumblr, your Twitches, your Instagrams, your Spotifys, your Vines, the subreddit, the Completionist subreddit. There's so many things to say something to me. But at the very least, if you're still here, say something to me. Say hello. Tweet at me. Hashtag too spooky for me. Or maybe hashtag no spooky. Because maybe the game didn't scare you at all. But hey, you know what? At the very least, there is this techno song. Is it techno? I think it's techno. I don't know. It's a remix. Yeah. Ah!
Spooky, scary skeletons and shivers down your spine. Shrieking skulls will shock your soul, seal your doom tonight. Spooky, scary skeletons speak with such a screech. You'll shake and shudder